Welcome to today's Explainer. Every generation or so, a story comes along that just absolutely takes the literary world by storm. It spreads like wildfire. And recently, one novel totally broke from the pack, capturing the hearts and minds of millions of readers globally with just astonishing speed. We are, of course, talking about the massive runaway phenomenon that is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. There's a whole lot to unpack about why this became so universally popular, so let's just jump right in.
Okay, let's dive into this. When you first hear about Fourth Wing, it's super easy to just put it in a neat little box, right? People naturally assume it's simply fantasy fiction driven by dragons. And I mean, yes, it absolutely is. But underneath that magical surface, it actually operates way more like a psychological thriller and a really tense tale of political survival. I kind of want to challenge your assumptions right off the bat here because it is far, far deeper than just a story about mythical beasts and epic battles in the sky.
So that brings us to our first main section. More than just dragons. We'll be looking into the mystery, the symbolism, and the deep psychological conflicts that drive this story. And that ties perfectly into our next section, the ultimate underdog story, focusing on Violet's forced reality. You see, our protagonist, Violet, had this one, quiet, simple dream her whole life. She literally just wanted to become a scribe, spending her days peacefully surrounded by books and historical archives. But that dream is violently shattered when her harsh, unyielding mother forces her into a completely different, terrifying reality. She's suddenly thrust into a highly dangerous environment, a place where, as they say, the weak do not survive. Basgiath War College is specifically designed for training dragon riders, and honestly, its brutal nature just cannot be overstated. From the very first moment Violet steps foot on the parapet, the expectation is practically unanimous. Everyone expects her to die on day one. The odds are entirely stacked against her, which sets up some incredibly high stakes. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark contrast we're immediately presented with. Violet is noticeably more physically fragile than the hardened, combat-ready trainees all around her. But what she noticeably lacks in brute physical strength, she more than compensates for with her true weapons, razor-sharp intelligence and sheer determination. She has this absolute, unbreakable will to just keep breathing. So the crucial point is that this story fundamentally redefines power within its universe. True strength becomes the tactical advantage of being underestimated, relying entirely on your mind when your body is frail. The novel teaches us this really profound lesson hidden right behind the action sequences. Sometimes, the most dangerous people in the room aren't the ones with the biggest muscles, right? They're the ones everyone else completely ignores. Next up is the section on politics, secrets, and betrayal, the paradigm shift. As the events progress, we experience this major narrative evolution, moving from a claustrophobic, physical survival story outward into something much bigger.
The underlying architecture of the world building quickly reveals itself here into a highly complex web of much darker themes. We've got political conspiracies, deep military secrets, and that looming threat of inevitable betrayal. The characters aren't just fighting mythical beasts or battling each other in the sparring rings. No, they're surrounded by constant, unseen threats originating from the very institutions that are supposed to train and protect them. Which leads us to section, the cost of survival and its unrelenting psychological tension. This is actually one of the primary reasons this explainer is so focused on the psychological elements. The tension is just off the charts. In this brutal environment, knowing every single test might literally be a character's last makes it incredibly gripping. And naturally, this extreme life-or-death tension heavily impacts their personal lives. Relationships here are definitely not perfect. They're messy, filled with doubt, conflict, and some seriously dangerous attraction. The author masterfully moves away from that idealized, simple romance you might typically expect. Instead, she gives us highly realistic dynamics between deeply flawed characters, making them feel genuinely human and real. Let's move to and see how this builds, creating a really dark but clear philosophical progression. Step 1, trust is broken. Step 2, war changes human morals. And step 3, survival requires sacrifice. The source material is actively guiding us through an exploration of human nature here. It shows how being in a constant state of danger just inherently corrupts morality. Trust literally becomes a massive liability, and surviving another day usually means sacrificing a little piece of your own humanity.
Now for our final section, power, fear, and purity, the immersive experience. Ultimately, the monumental success of Fourth Wing doesn't just come from its entertaining fantasy elements.
It really stems from its incredible ability to pull you into an unpredictable universe where the truth is often way deadlier than the dragons themselves. Which brings us to the ultimate haunting question this story leaves echoing in our minds. Can a person remain pure inside a world built entirely on power and fear? It's a profound dilemma. When your environment actively rewards ruthlessness and demands violence just for basic survival, how do you hold on to your soul? It's a really powerful thought to ponder, and it perfectly encapsulates why this narrative has resonated so deeply across the globe. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I hope it gave you a much clearer understanding of the phenomenal success behind Fourth Wing.